Good morning. Good morning, students. I'm Sridevi here, uh, Head of Electrical and Electronics Engineering section from the Department of Technical Education, Telangana. We are looking into the course Industrial Management and Entrepreneurship for final year diploma students. Right? In the previous classes, we have looked into the first unit, um, right, business management, and now we are into the second unit, that is personal management. Right? In this personal management, in this today's session, we'll be looking into the various recruitment procedures and the types of interviews. Right? As you all know, now we are into the final year of engineering. Most of you might be going for, might be the higher studies, but some of you will be surely going for jobs. So it will be very useful for you, even for those who are going into the for higher education. This topic will be very much useful for you because you'll be anyhow looking into the various jobs maybe after a couple of years, right? Uh, right. We always listen to the word recruitment. What does recruitment actually mean? Recruitment means refers to the overall process of attracting, shortlisting, selecting, and appointing suitable candidates for jobs. The jobs can be either permanent jobs or temporary jobs within an organization. But the process of um, hiring the staff is called recruitment. Right? It can also refer to as process involved in choosing individuals, of course, even for unpaid roles. Right? It involves sourcing, screening, and selection. Sourcing means from where can they obtain the candidates for their particular job, for their specific job purpose. And out of the number of candidates, how can they screen them? How can they filter the candidates? And also how to pick up the right candidate for a right job. These all are the part of recruitment. Right? We'll just have a look at the 7 steps for effective recruitment. We call it here effective recruitment because only once the organization is capable of picking a right candidate for the right position, only then the job will be successful. The organization will be a successful one. So it's in fact a management skill. To recruit a right person is literally a management skill. We'll just have a look at the 7 effective steps of recruitment. First is you have to start for, before you start for looking, we must know what actually a particular organization requires. Right? What is the job specification? What actually it requires? That must be well defined. Right? Then once they know what the organization actually requires, where the vacancy area is there existing, then they must look into the job description. Right? What are the various jobs the particular person is supposed to do? The job description must be able to be defined or described in a but in a clear manner. And also the profile of the person they are looking for to meet this job description must be clearly mentioned. Then finding the candidates. From where can they find the candidates for this particular job? They also must be clearly known for the organization. The various sources of finding the candidates, a right candidate must be known. Then managing the application process. Once they are able to know the sources and when they call for the application, there will be n number of applications coming. How to manage this application process, they must know. Then how to select the candidates either through written test or interviews or skill test, right? All these things they must know. And then making the appointment, right? And the last step is induction. Right? And the last step is induction. So as you see here, we have to first announce for a job, Announce for the job by clearly specifying the description and clearly mentioning the profile of a person they are looking for. Then they must be able to uh, find the various sources, then must be able to manage the application process, select the candidates as per the job description by conducting either skill test or written test and interviews or the various combination modes, and then they must be able to make an appointment and then of course induction. Right. Because as I've told you, it needs lots of management skills. The first and foremost step in any management is planning. So we look into the first method of first way of planning. First is planning, recruitment planning. So for any recruitment planning, as I've told you, they must be able to identify the vacancy, right? See number of posts to be filled, or what are the number of posts available, how many are filled, how many are vacant, number of to be posts to be filled at this particular instant must be known, number of positions, right? Either higher in the higher level management or lower level management, middle management, or the staff, the workers needed, the number of positions must be known, duties and responsibilities to be performed must be clearly defined, qualification and experience required for the particular post have to be mentioned, right? This all come under identifying the vacancy. Then the second step in the recruitment planning is job analysis. Right? Job analysis means it is a process of identifying, analyzing, and determining the duties, responsibilities, skills, abilities, and work environment of a specific job. Right? It is a process of identifying, analyzing, determining the duties, responsibilities, skills, abilities, and work environment of a specific job. These factors help in identifying what job demands and what an employee must possess in performing a job productively. Right? Job analysis helps in understanding what tasks are important and how to perform them. Right? Its purpose, the main purpose of job analysis is to establish and document the job relatedness of the employment procedures such as selection, right? Either written test, as just now as we have discussed. Medical test might be physical test or all the medical test, what I've told you, written test, skill test, whatever it is, the selection procedures, training, compensation, and performance appraisals. Right. The third comes is job description. Job description is it is generated for fulfilling the following process: classification and ranking of jobs. As I told you, either he should be placed in a managerial post or a supervisor post, or as a workman, or either in the stores or for designing, like this: classification and ranking of job, placing and orientation of new resources, promotion and transfers, describing the career path, future development of work standards. All these things are mentioned in job description. Right? It provides information on the following element: job title, job identification, his position in the organization, the location of the job, at where, like at which place, summary of the job, the duties of the particular person, the various machines and material and equipment the person has to handle, right? The process of supervising, working conditions, right? Health hazards, everything is mentioned in job description. Next is job specification, right? In planning, this is the fourth step, job specification. It is a document which provides information on the following elements: qualification of the person they are looking out for, the experience of the person they are looking out for, and what are the training and development they are providing, what are the skills required to handle this particular position, what are the work responsibilities, who will be his authority, to whom he need to um, authorize the work, or what are his work responsibilities, everything will be mentioned. What are the emotional characteristics that particular person must have, and also planning of the career, everything must be mentioned, right? For these various posts, they have various sources of recruitment. One is internal source, the other one is external source. Internal source means see, promotions, transfers, upgrading, demotion, retired employees, retrenched employees, all these are various internal sources. External sources means getting the candidates from the external source, like by advertising, by going for colleges or universities and conducting various campus interviews, or by looking at the various placement agencies who can give them a right candidate, outsourcing or consultancies, right? Employment exchanges, labor contractors, like this. We have the basic, the sources of recruitment are basically classified into two types, internal and external. Internal source is they look at the personnel within their organization, right? Within their organization, they look for a candidate who can rightly fit into that particular job, right? Either by giving him promotion or by transferring from some other locations, or from by upgrading their person to a higher grade, like this. Through the various internal sources, they can recruit the person. Similarly, they can recruit a person through various external sources, right? So once uh, see, the sources of recruitment is identified, then the next step will be, as we have seen in the previous slides, next step will be the selection procedure. Selection procedure can either be, as I've told you, can either be a written test, or it can be a written test in combination with medical test for particular jobs, because some jobs will also look into their physical fitness, right? Physical fitness. Some jobs demand like their eyesight must be very good, like that. And some jobs, their hearing capabilities, audio visual capabilities, like that. Depending on the type of job that particular candidate is supposed to do, the various tests will be conducted, right? So the test will be like, as I've just have told you, written test in combination with physical test, physical fitness, medical test, right? There can be a number of tests. For few jobs, um, there need not be any written test, because when the people are totally, when they are supposed to do only skillful work, say a lower grade workman, where their qualification is not that important, but their skill is important, then they take the candidate as per that particular requirement, right? So it can be a combination of two or more things, like written test, physical test, physical examination, medical examination, right? All a combination of these things. Of course, in addition to all these things, mostly for all the cases, they have the candidates are once the screening is basic screening is done, tests are done. Even the written test can be of two types: general aptitude test, or purely technical test, or a combination of that, depending on the job he is supposed to do. Then a particular number of candidates will be screened or filtered, right? Once they are filtered, again based on the job description, they will be undergoing various types of interviews, right? Various types of interviews. Um, right. For few particular jobs, interviews may not be mandatory, but for most of the jobs, interviews are mandatory. Right. we'll see what is and what an interview means and what are the different types of interviews. Right? Um, what is an interview? Interview is a formal meeting or a conversation between an employer and a job applicant. Right? So, it's a meeting for obtaining information. Why is it carried out? It is carried out to obtain information by questioning a person or persons, a number of persons. It's a formal meeting at which somebody is asked questions to see if they are suitable for a particular job or a course of study or for a college or a university. Right? It is a private meeting between people where questions are asked and answered. To ask somebody about their life, their opinions, especially on radio or the latest developments, latest technologies, um, on their zeal to learn, like that. Right? To give an interview is to agree to answer the questions asked by the interviewers. Right? So, generally, job interviews are the ones in which a person has to go through in order to get a job he wants. So, they are usually face-to-face interviews and include paperwork. Right? Say in generally job interviews, what will happen is like you need to show your documents of your qualification, of your experience, of your project work, like that, and the marks obtained in the test. All these things you need to show and go for the interview. Right there, they'll be asking various questions about your awareness regarding the company or awareness in your particular subject or your skills, various skills, your ability to talk, your ability um, to work in that particular company. They'll be looking at all these things personally. Right? During an interview, you can be expected to ask questions about your educational background, previous work experiences, questions relating to personal characteristics, your goals, and all. Right? Generally, the purpose of an interview is to find if the candidate has a right attitude and fits the requirement and the company culture. So, by just taking the interview, interviewers will be able to assess you and to find the best candidate to fill the vacancy they are looking out for. Right? In general, what does an interviewer look for? They just look for who you are as a person, your knowledge, your skills, your attitude, your ability to interact with people, your capacity to take work pressure. All these things they'll be able to assess. Right? Because they'll be asking you questions on the various topics. In addition to um, the subject you are qualified at, they'll be asking you about various personal questions. They'll be testing your behavioral patterns. They'll be testing your attitude, everything. They will be able to assess. Right? There can be different types of interviews. Right? One of the types is structured or a direct interview. In this particular interview, the questions and acceptable responses are specified in advance. Responses are rated for appropriateness of the content. Are you able to give the right response or not? That will be assessed. It is also called as standardized interview as they are pre-planned to high degree of accuracy and precision. Right. You also have unstructured or indirect interview or open-ended interview. Right, where you'll be asked to give a solution for a particular problem, like that. Right? Not directed by the questions or comments as to what the candidate should be asked. So then and there they'll be asking you No set of format is allowed or followed. Candidate is encouraged to express himself on any topic of his interest, his expectations, his background, etc. Interviewers look for the traits of characters and nature of his aspirations, strength, weakness, potential, etc. through this unstructured or indirect interview, right? So it is more an informal way of interview, right? You also have semi-structured interview where you'll be asked questions on the specific topics, right? A general set of questions, but the interview flows like a conversation and the topics are covered as they come up. Like that, you have structured or indirect interview, unstructured interview, semi-structured interview, like that. Depending on the requirement, job requirement, you're supposed to face the interview, and the interviews are designed like that, right? In addition to these, in some jobs, they demand stress interviews, right? This is the type of interview. It is rare in the present job scenario, but it was a very common method when selecting for a sales position like that, right? When a particular person is put under heavy pressure, how is going to handle the situation and all. Like this, stress interviews will be there, right? It means being asked more than one question at a time, being asked further questions without being allowed to, giving adequate time to respond. The interviewer adopts to a hostile behavior and deliberately puts the candidates on defensive by trying to annoy him, embarrass him, or frustrate him. Right? By doing all these things, also the interviewer expects the person, the candidate, to be very peaceful. He asks questions rapidly, criticizes, and interrupts him or her frequently, makes derogatory remarks, etc., having his or hurting his feelings or provoking him, right? By using the various techniques, they will try to provoke the candidate or frustrate the candidate, annoy the candidate. And by doing all these means also, they expect the candidate to be very peaceful. This interview is an attempt to see how the candidate can handle themselves under stress. So the interviewer deliberately assumes a sarcastic or a argumentative position because their jobs demand such things, right? So for this, the interviewees must remain calm under such situation. Only then you get selected. Otherwise, you'll be discarded because their job requires this stress to be handled. Right. Next, you have appraisal and assessment interview. So this generally happens within a company to move to a higher position. Right, within the company, if a candidate wants to move to a higher position, these appraisals or assessment interviews will be conducted. This is a discussion following the performance appraisals. In general, for any employee, appraisals will be given depending on the company, annually or quarterly, half yearly, like that. Appraisals will be given. Right, so based on the performance, generally the higher authority will give the appraisals. In some companies, even self appraisals are also taken up, right? So based on this, there will be a discussion, right? This is in which the supervisor and employee discuss the employee's rating and possible remedial actions to be taken. If the rating is not too good, then they discuss how it has to be improved, how his performance has to be improved, right? Either by sending him for any training or improving his performance in wherever his ranking is low, wherever he is lacking it. And then you have exit interviews. Exit interviews are generally conducted for the candidates who is willing to leave the company, who wants to leave the company. The company wants to retain that person, but that person wants to exit, then an interview will be conducted. Right? When an employee leaves the company for any reason, an exit interview is conducted. It aims at eliciting information about the job or related matters. They just want to know where the company, where the candidate is unhappy about the company, the organization. Right? From that, they want to improve. Right? Help the employer in having better insight into what is right or wrong about the company. Highlights the work of a HR manager, human resource manager. Right? Apart from these things, the job interviews can be classified into these various types, like individual or one-on-one interviews, group interviews, panel interviews, telephonic interviews, video conferencing, auditions, like this, right? So uh, the types of interviews can be broadly classified into 6: one-on-one, group interview, panel interview, telephonic interviews, video conferencing, and auditions. Right? As you look at, this is, what is this? One-on-one interview. Right? You have an interviewer and an interviewee. See, the interviewer will be asking questions. One-to-one interview. Single interviewer who takes the interview one by one. He will call the candidate one by one, and he will interview them. The interview can be a structured one or a unstructured one or a semi-structured one. Depends. It depends. Right? It can even be a stress interview, whatever it is. Like this, um, the interviewer will be taking interview to the candidate one by one. Right? It can be structured, unstructured, or a sequential one. Right? It is easier to handle generally more informal things, more informal types of interviews. Right? Asking about his personal details, his educational qualifications, his interests, his hobbies. So these are all the informal things, right? His hobbies, his goals in the lives, all these things will be asked here. The best way to handle such interviews is to relate them as a form of conversation. Next is sequential or a serial interview. So the candidate will be put into a number of, is supposed to look in a number of interviews. See, after first level, he's supposed to go for a second level interview, technical interview, like this different type, serial interview, sequential interviews will be conducted. Right, in which applicant is interviewed sequentially by several persons, several interviewers, where one can ask the questions based on the subject of his study, one on his personal questions, some about his goals, aims, and aspirations. Some one interviewer can ask him about the general knowledge, like this. You have number of persons, and they'll be asking questions about the various topics. Each one rates the applicants on the standard evaluation form, and these ratings are then compared before hiring decision is taken. Each interviewer rates from his or her own point of view, asks different questions, and forms an independent opinion of the candidate. Finally, they come to a conclusion and then give their rating. Based on their average rating, hiring will be taken. Right. The next type of interview is group interview or group discussion. We generally call it as a GD, where a number of people are, a number of candidates are called for, and there they'll be looking at their leadership skills or team spirit. Everything can be assessed for. The main purpose of this interview is to see how the interviewee interact with others. Right, that is very well required by any organization. You must be able to communicate with others properly. You must be able to interact with others properly, and how he or she influences the others with his or her knowledge, and reasoning, everything will be assessed. It's also known as GD, group discussion. A topic for discussion is given to a group, and there they'll be assessed. What is the knowledge about the topic? How is he able to handle the topic and uh, give his reasoning in a group? And group interview is also best way to discover any leadership potential, group participation, team playing skills, and communication skills among the candidates. The selected candidates from the group interview are then taken for an informal one-to-one interview, informal one. So once the candidates are being selected through GD, then one-on-one interviews will be conducted in general. Next is panel interview or a committee interview. Right, a panel interview comprising more than 2 members interviewing a person for the hiring. It is most common mode of interview when hiring at the senior level. Right. This interview should try to connect with each interviewer, and the best way to do this is to read the personality of each interviewer. Right. He must be able to attentively answer to the questions by all the interviewers. So attentiveness is also tested there. In a panel interview, the interviewer tries to gauge the group management and group presentation skills of the interviewee. Right? The interviewee should maintain eye contact with the person asking the question, but also seek eye contact with the other members of the panel. So he must be able to present himself in an attractive way. Right? Then telephonic interview. So this is generally done where a large number of candidates are to be interviewed. Phone interviews are increasingly used in mass hiring. Right? The interview is conducted entirely over the phone, and this is very effective in eliminating any bias that may arise from the appearance and the manner of the candidate. Right? So here your personal appearance and all will not come into picture. So it must be totally unbiased one. And we generally nowadays look into this term walk-in interviews, right, where the candidates just walk in with their qualification documents. So no specific candidates are called, but those who are eligible can approach them with their valid documents. There they will be seen whether they are fit into that particular job position or not, and then they'll be called for if selected. And now this, because of this advancement in the technology, you have all these things: video conferencing, using video technology, clothing, body language, dialogue are important here as well. Right? So even through video conferences, you can have interviews, all these different sorts of interviews, one-on-one interview or a panel interview. All these interviews can be carried out even through video conferencing. Right? So these are the various types of interviews supposed to face depending on the job profile or expectancy. Right? Facts you should know about the company. So when you are attending any interview, you must know the facts about that particular company. That will be an added advantage for you. Right? So about the company, the history of the company, the employment, the position in the industry, everything must be aware of. Then only you'll be able to answer properly, or you'll be prepared for that particular job. Right? The competitors of that particular company, what are the products and services they are providing, what is their global presence, their ranking, their publications, the blogs, presence in the social media, what are the different analysts review about that particular company. Also know about the finances of the company, which is very much essential, because you go there for a job, you expect the salaries to be paid in on time, and also even the finances of the company is essential to be known. the position you have applied for, recruitments, requirements of a specific position, right? You must also know to which position you have applied for and what are the requirements for the specific position, right? The job profile, your growth opportunities when you join the company, right? Your promotions and all, salary offered for the role, requirement of travel, working hours to be put in, qualifications, and any technical skills required. All these things you must know prior to going for the interview. Before you go for the interview, you must be knowing about all these things of that particular company. Then only that will surely give you an added advantage. Do's and don'ts for an interview. So do's and don'ts always help you to present yourself very well. Right? Do not demonstrate overconfidence. You have to show enthusiasm. It's not answer the questions before the question has been completed. Right? Must always carry. Make sure that you carry extra copies of your resume. Right? Um, so must not talk continuously unless you are demanded for. Right? Must always wear a cheerful smile in addition to a formal wear. Right? Must never be rude or get into an argument with the interviewers. Must be polite, assertive, and firm. Though they frustrate you, must always be polite. This you have to remember. Do not fiddle with your tie or a pen. This always shows that you are not confident or you are not serious about the position. Right? Be genuine and truthful when you reply. Do not extend your hands first for a handshake. That's also you have to remember well. Look into the eyes of the interviewer while talking to him or her. Do not be unclear about your expectations of the from the job. So, and hence you are supposed to know about the company. You must be aware of the company's position in the market or company's products or services. All these things you must be well aware of. Right. So, before going for any interview, you must be prepared with the following questions. You must be able to tell something about yourself, your hobbies, why you have chosen this particular career, right? Um, have you heard about? See, you must be well prepared with the current topics. You must be well aware of the current topics. The project work in your college, you must just go through it once before going to the interview. See how you're supposed to go, all these things. Yeah, generally, your emotional quotient also they'll be testing for. Your if at all you're have particular experience in any other company, what was your role? What is your experience there? Right? What did you personally carry out? What is your work profile and all they'll be asking. Um, so they also expect you um, to set up a goal and are you enthusiastic or not? What are your expectations from the job, from the company, and also your strengths and weaknesses you must have a clarity of, right? So if at all an adverse situation is there at work, then how are you going to tackle it? All these things you must go prepared for, right? So this is all about the recruitment and the various interview methods, right? So in this class, we have seen what are the various recruitment methods, what are the different types of interviews. So your students, surely after your studies, you will be going for jobs. So once you know about these things, you have to go well prepared for any interview. You must know about the company, you must know about yourself, your strengths, your weakness. You must be able to assess yourself and also your company. You must set goals for yourself and be prepared for any situation and be confident while going for any interview, right? And must perform well in the interviews. Wish you all the best. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for staying. The next class, we'll further look into another interesting topic of your career, which will be very useful for your career. Thank you.